we have an amazing group of young men that wants to make every shot, that wants to make the right play, that want to play mistake-free basketball. And as a coach, I'm so proud of how our mindset has been and the attitude has been within the team.
All right, there he is, Juwan Howard, Michigan coach, and Michigan basketball returns. Welcome in here to the Maize and Blue Review. Also, it's Afternoon Live. We also get not only Michigan basketball returning, but Daniel Dash returning as well, the TMBR beat writer who's on the line. Daniel, good to see you. What's going on?
Nothing much. Enjoying the return of basketball. Enjoying the thick of the football offseason. January is a big month for coaching turnover. We'll get into that, but in general, there's never a dull moment, and I think it's going to be a good week.
You like the 9 o'clock tips, which is what Michigan is in store for tonight, Friday night, late night in Champaign, FS1, 9.5, 10 points Michigan getting in this game. You like the late ones?
I don't like the late tips. I understand why they stagger the games for TV purposes, but at the same time, you think of the rivalry that Michigan and Illinois have kind of developed over the last year or two. You would think that this would be one of the Saturday afternoon games, even a Sunday CBS slot. So I think that they could have done a better job scheduling this one, but nonetheless, Michigan's back in action after a 10-day layoff.
You're a relatively young guy, you went to Michigan and everything else, but when it comes to media matters, you're like, the old shoehorn there, like, no to the late games. You probably like the noon kickoffs and don't like the late ones either, right? So,
the big house under the lights is special. That I love.
Okay.
But I mean, basketball, when you're playing indoors, and you don't see sunlight. For a 9 o'clock tip, figure at Chrysler, you're not out of there till 1 a.m. So it's a late night.
Yeah, that's right. You mentioned the rivalry between these two, and you can go back to tonight. You can go back as far as you want in 1989. But if you go back to last year, there was no question that Illinois, their coach was leading the charge. I mean, their players talked about it. Certainly, their fans haven't let it go that Michigan won the Big Ten, and Illinois wanted to win the Big Ten. How does that factor in tonight?
Look, it's a lot of the same supporting casts from both teams. Illinois especially. I mean, they lost Io DeSumo. Obviously, Michigan lost Isaiah Livers, Franz Wagner, Shawnee Brown, Mike Smith. But, I mean, the guy who had the most beef with the Illinois fan base is Hunter Dickinson. And he'll be in Champaign tonight for the first time in front of fans. Obviously, last year, no fans. And last year, they only played once. The only time that Michigan played Illinois was at Chrysler. And Illinois took it to them. They beat the brakes off Michigan. They won by more than 20 points. It's one of the most lopsided losses in the Juwan Howard era so far. I think Illinois is going to try to come out and do the same thing tonight. I think they're upset about losing last year's regular season title. Obviously, they finished with more wins, but because of Michigan's state-mandated, not even department-mandated, 2-week shutdown, Michigan had a better winning percentage. Obviously, losing the head-to-head against Illinois left some question marks, but at the end of the day, the tiebreakers that the athletic directors and commissioner agreed on before the season held, and that's why there's a banner in Chrysler and not the State Farm Arena. But I think tonight you're going to see a pretty angry Illinois group, at least of the returners.
If you were in Champaign, you could tell all the students there, you could turn around and say, look, you guys agreed to these rules at the beginning, and then you wanted them changed at the end. So you guys really don't have a leg to stand on. So just kind of take it easy. That's what they wanted. They wanted to change up after the rules had already been in place. And maybe, to their point, the rules, they got switched in football, towards the end. And so they wanted some of that stuff in basketball. You can get it. You like big men matchup because Kofi Coburn and Hunter Dickinson, that's worth just tuning in to see those two big guys colliding, huh?
Oh, yeah. These are 2 top 10 big guys in the country. Some would argue 2 top 5 big guys in the country. Kofi's having a heck of a season, really come a long way in terms of passing out of the post. That's something he struggled to do last year. Illinois surrounds him with shooters. It makes it really hard to double team and collapse onto Kofi because you're choosing between giving up a dunk or giving up a wide open 3 to a guy like Plummer, a guy like Trent Frazier. And I think that you're seeing a lot of defenses in conflict, and that's going to be the biggest challenge for Michigan tonight, how they defend Kofi in the post. Hunter can hold his own one-on-one, but if Hunter's not on the floor or if Hunter's getting beat, they're going to have to make some adjustments. And that's where I think the chess match between Brett Underwood and Juwan Howard is going to take shape.
I don't know if even before the season, when most people liked Michigan to defend the Big Ten title, when you looked at this particular game and you're going wins, losses. You probably put an L next to it, certainly heading into this year. And then, watching Rutgers go there and lose by 35 points, you can't have great confidence if you're a fan. And then this week, do you have any sense, like, the one point I read a quote, Juwan saying they couldn't practice, certainly couldn't go full court 5-on-5. That seems like that could factor in of them going in and having limited, not just limited practice and limited roster, but, not just being able to get out there and go, full bore at one another. This is a real challenge for him here.
Right. That's a good point. Not having the bodies to practice, not even having the bodies to scrimmage among yourselves. I mean, that takes a lot out of what Michigan does. And I think the program mantra for competitors only is rooted in competition. And when you don't have the bodies to simply compete at practice, it really takes a lot away. And the other point that I want to make that I think connects to that is conditioning. Like, I think you're going to see some pretty wobbly legs tonight. These are some guys who, some of them just got out of quarantine within the last 2 days. Think of the CDC's mandate, right now is 5 days. So if they fell below the roster minimum on Friday night before Saturday's tip-off against Michigan State, that means those guys are out Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They travel Thursday, and then they're going to play Friday. Like, I don't know what you're going to expect out of a conditioning standpoint. I think Juwan Howard might be rotating guys pretty quick tonight. You might see some call it hockey lines, like 3 or 4 minute shifts, stints. You go out there, you give it your all. 2 or 3 minutes on the bench, 3 or 4 minutes on the court, you get your water, and you go back out. And I think Michigan's going to have to find a way to make it work because they're going into the Lions' den.
Well, too bad they, you didn't go. Maybe they could have dressed you, or too bad the coaches can't get in there. They could use Juwan or Sadi or Howard out there. They probably would have, a couple bodies. That's what I found it hard to believe when they couldn't practice. Do you have any sense when you look ahead here, and they talked about the postponements of Purdue and Michigan State, and I looked at a couple dates, open dates. It was going to be squashed together for sure, where Michigan and Michigan State could play, but I haven't seen anything from the Big Ten. Now you had to add Purdue in there. Is it Michigan and the opponent have to agree on that, or does the Big Ten just say, okay, we're just going to go ahead and schedule this up? Do you know how that works?
I think they all work together with the league office. I think the word the Big Ten uses is in coordination with the league office. That could mean a couple different things. That could mean the league telling the schools when they're going to play. But Michigan's got a pretty decent gap, or two really, on their schedule down the stretch between February 27th, which is a Sunday, and March 3rd, which is a Thursday. Those are back-to-back home games. 5-day window. You could fit a game in the second or third day. Michigan has a Wednesday through Sunday break from February 23rd to February 27th, sandwiched between home games against Rutgers and Illinois. I think that's a good spot where you could fit a game in. And it's nice because both of these games are home games for Michigan that they missed. Michigan State and Purdue were both scheduled to be in Ann Arbor. That means that they will be coming to Ann Arbor later in the season. It's not like Michigan's going to have to scramble to put together a bus trip or a last-minute flight. Look, there's no ideal way to do it. There's no, happy medium for every side. Everyone plays a different Big Ten schedule. Everyone plays a tough Big Ten schedule. And coming down the stretch, teams are going to feel it physically, mentally. And I think sandwiching a game in is going to be tougher than it seems. But at the same time, it's necessary. And under these new forfeiture guidelines, it seems like they're going to do everything in their power to make sure they get these games in.
Yeah, well, Michigan could, use quad ones, I think, which both of those would end up falling into. Daniel, are you a Michigan Daily alum now? No,
I'm in my last semester. So I'm graduating in April. Still senior editing at the Michigan Daily. Feels weird that the last semester's already here, but try to make the most of it.
Yeah, I like the pictures when you show like the paper out and about on campus.
Nice.
Cool. It's cool. It's cool pictures. It look good. You got the campus in the background. You got you holding up the newspaper. It looks pretty cool. Adam Schefter from ESPN. He is a Daily alum, right?
Daily alum. Yep.
Here's what he said recently about Jim Harbaugh when he was asked if the coach is staying in Ann Arbor.
Is that he's more likely than not to stay, though you never can rule out an NFL team making him an offer that he can't refuse. And if that happens, then anything's possible, of course.
All right. So the Raiders are playing tomorrow. They're in Cincinnati. That's the team. I don't know if it's a team to beat, however you want to look at it, team of interest. You hear Schefter there. I thought that Mike Elston, the defensive line coach at Notre Dame, being hired, that I know a lot of Michigan fans, I can understand. It felt like, hey, Jim Harbaugh is, he's hiring a staff. That means he's staying. also everything else. But you have this weekend, you have the Raiders and all of that. You heard what Schefter had to say about it. I mean, how are you feeling about this? I'm sure a lot of people ask you what's going on with Jim Harbaugh.
First thing you got to say is never say never. That's the cardinal rule of college football coaching changes. And I think this offseason in particular, I mean, no one expected Lincoln Riley to bolt for USC. And then that set the tone for a pretty violent coaching carousel. But I mean, at the same time, it's so hard to see him leaving with where things stand now. I mean, he's building something at his alma mater that's really looks sustainable. Just brought in another Michigan man for the staff and a really accomplished coach in Mike Elston. What even constitutes an offer that you can't refuse? Like if Mark Davis, a good friend of Jim Harbaugh and the owner of the Las Vegas Raiders, if he throws $12 to $14 million a year at Harbaugh, offers full control of the franchise, all personnel ops, it's going to be really hard to turn down. At the same time, the Raiders, their interim head coach, doing a heck of a job. It's a guy that the guys look like they love playing for. I don't know if you caught any of the Raiders-Chargers game, but one of the best games in the NFL regular season. And thought that the interim guy held his own in that game. So I think that it seems like it's Raiders or bust at this point. I would be shocked if he left Ann Arbor, but always got to come back to the never say never.
Yeah, and you know what, Rich Bisaccia, the fans are taking to him. I mean, they won not only that game against the Chargers, but they won, I think, 3 games prior to that to put themselves in position to get here. I remember Kansas City, they were calling them quitters, and this team's a joke. And then they ripped off these the wins here. They go to Cincy and even keep it close. I mean, you can make a case even before you get to any offers you couldn't refuse. While we're on the NFL subject, I wanted to ask you about the Dolphins. You told me last time that you were a Dolphins fan. I was surprised that they fired Brian Flores. Now, I wanted to ask you because Chris Greer's the GM, and I've heard it. I haven't heard it actually reported, but people say it a lot, like that Greer wanted Tua as the quarterback, but it was actually Flores. He wanted the Dolphins to draft Herbert, who you just mentioned there. And do you know if there's any truth to that? That seems like, of course, that would be a terrible a GM and a coach going in together on a franchise quarterback, being at odds right off the bat. Like that this seems kind of predictable now. If that was the case, is that true?
Yeah, and I think I don't know whether that's true, and I don't know if there's truth to the Tua versus Herbert, but it was clear for a while that they weren't on the same page. I mean, it's shocking anytime a coach has a 7-game winning streak and finishes a season winning 8 of his last 9 games and gets fired the next day. It stinks because Flores is a heck of an up-and-coming coach. He's a Belichick guy. He cut his teeth in New England. I think he was doing a really good job in Miami. It seemed like players loved him, but I mean, at the end of the day, the NFL is a power struggle between front offices, coaches, and owners. I think that's part of what broke up the Patriots dynasty 2 years ago when Brady left for Tampa Bay. Stinks when it happens to your own team and you have a coach you like and a GM you like and an owner in Stephen Ross who is not afraid to open the checkbook. You would think that they'd find a way to make it work, but.
All right, I'll leave you here with 2 predictions from you. Michigan at Illinois. What do you think happens?
Give me 76-64 Illinois.
That's a cover for the Fighting Illini. Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh. Will he return? When will we find out about that?
Timing is interesting. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think at this point for Michigan fans, no news is good news. I think that if he was really seriously entertaining more NFL offers, whether it be from the Bears, Broncos, any other team besides the Raiders, given that the Raiders are still alive, you'd hear news, you'd hear reports, you'd hear buzz. That's just kind of what happens naturally behind the scenes in the NFL. So the fact that it's been, what are we up to, a week and a half of silence on the Jim Harbaugh front? I think if you're a Michigan fan, that's something that you take in stride and something that you probably welcome at this point.
I think Michigan fans are changing up to go blue this weekend. To go Raiders! There you go. We'll see that happens tomorrow. All right, Daniel, appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
And your opinions and everything else. And we'll talk with you again down the road.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
See ya. There he is. Daniel Dash joining us here, giving his thoughts there on what else is on a Michigan fan's mind. Jim Harbaugh is on a Michigan fan's mind, and people want to know what you know. They want opinions on this. And like what is a offer you can't refuse until you start talking and until you have an offer. It's the one part. I mean, you got to have an offer there. And, heading into this weekend, the one part I'll disagree with Daniel, you're like the no news is good news. I get that from other teams like, hey, the Bears have reached out and they're talking, and maybe it doesn't mean that it's necessarily coming out public the way you don't have to meet in person. You can meet like this right here. When you want to do this low key for obvious reasons, could you be able to do that? Probably. But I think the news that would be good, Harbaugh could just, come out and they could release that they've reworked his contract. Would that be the head? Michigan and Jim Harbaugh have come to an agreement on a reworked contract, because he has one. I think that's how it is. That would be the news. It would be music to Michigan fans' ears. Before we get to the Michigan recruiting spotlight, the memorabilia minute, and a little bonus today. I'm going to pick all the wild card games for you and tell you how I feel about them. Give you some winners heading into the weekend. I do see Mike here with a question. Any chance Coach Elston can bring along Rocco Spindler from Notre Dame? That would be nice. Well, Clarkston's Rocco Spindler, he loves Notre Dame. He likes his time up there. I know his dad, Mark. I see the pictures of when they go to South Bend. I would say no to that. But you know what? I'm old enough now. I can remember when Elston played for Michigan, and he comes in highly regarded. I think the last couple of years there were people. The Michigan fans that say, what's wrong is that Michigan needs to hire more Michigan men. Jim Harbaugh is the only Michigan man on the staff. And you start going through it, a lot of Michigan men, there, and that energy. And so, and the other part here is when it's happening, trying to put two and two together, that this looks, favorable for Jim Harbaugh coming back. Certainly if there was some kind of deal that was already in place, you wouldn't be going out then outside the program and hiring anybody else, because why would you? You wouldn't, because you would have a new head coach and he would want to assemble his own staff, that kind of thing. So Michigan would stay in-house there. You never say never, but there it is. Appreciate your thoughts there, Mike. When it comes to recruiting, we had Brandon Justice on yesterday, was the recruiting editor, still works on the recruiting side, but is the senior editor, and the dead period ends today. So Michigan will, like other schools, they'll be bringing people in. They're bringing in a defensive tackle over the weekend, also bringing in a running back, Andrew Paul, 3-star running back out of Dallas, Texas. And here's Justice on Paul.
Situation is interesting with the 2022 running back, because Michigan basically was in a spot where they were going to get Trey Annum. They felt like they were going to get Trey Annum, the running back, and that the grad transfer from Arizona State, and that ended up falling through. And he goes to Ohio State to be a linebacker. And now Michigan's in a spot where they have 4, I believe, maybe 5 scholarship running backs. I think it's only 4 though. And with that in mind, you're going to need at least one more, right? So ideally you're going to get the one. And with that being said, Andrew Paul is a kid out of Texas who's got a 5.5 Rivals rating, which isn't all that high, but his offer list is, incredibly impressive.
Well, that offer list that Justice is talking about, besides Michigan, you got Michigan State, Notre Dame, who we just talked about, and Auburn, to name a few on that list. So big-time schools want them. And I know some people, they look at the rankings, but a lot of people are like, who's offering them? Want to know that. All right, good stuff there in the Michigan recruiting spotlight from Brandon Justice. 1 minute to talk about memorabilia, and I go to this deck of cards. A Michigan deck of cards. It's beat up. I've never used them in a game, but I've taken them around for a long time. You can see every card indicates a former Michigan player. Does it look like Charles Woodson? Charles Woodson, the ace of spades. We've got, here's my favorite all-time Michigan player, Anthony Carter, the king of hearts. Why am I showing you a deck of cards? Here's the recently retired broadcaster Dan Deerdorf as the 8 of diamonds. Who do we got here? Oh, in the Hall of Fame. This is why. Mark Messner, 8 of hearts. Congratulations to Mark for making the College Football Hall of Fame. 2 guys that we've talked about this week, and I noticed that Braylon Edwards is not in the College Football Hall of Fame. Braylon was on Twitter yesterday like, what's up, College Football Hall of Fame? How about you go ahead and look at my numbers and put me in the Hall? You know what? Braylon, very deserving to go into the College Football Hall of Fame, as is Rick Leach, the guts and glue of the maize and blue. There he is. Actually, that kind of looks like Rick Leach there. Old number 7, 75 to 78. The Jack of Hearts. And not only looking at the guys that should be included in the College Football Hall of Fame, they have one joker that's in this deck. I feel like David Blaine. One joker. Who do you think that joker would be? The joker is Bob Ufer. There he is, the old Michigan broadcaster, and we'll find out who fills his shoes, who gets behind the mic there, who will be the next joker for the Michigan football team, Michigan football, Michigan radio, taking over for Jim Brandstatter. All right, the moment that you have been waiting for when it comes down, you want to know who's going to be the winners this weekend in the Super Wild Card Weekend. Let me go through these games and tell you what I'm thinking and why. The first game is the Raiders and the Bengals, and I don't care, maybe it is all done. This is all whatever. I'm rooting for the Raiders. I want to see the silver and black win. Rich Bisaccia, I hope they at least keep it close for him. And, a guy that went for an interim nearly 40 years as an assistant coach in the NFL. This could be a game that's worth, if you get a head coach, $5 million a year, $7 million a year, this is like a $35 million game. You think, spending $2-3 or whatever you're spending on your gambling site is something. How about Rich Bisaccia? $35 million game for him. But, looking at this, Herbert, the Raiders did a nice job winning their last 4 games there. And the Sunday night game, they played out of their minds, and that was great. And they did it against Herbert, who made some plays, brought him back from 15. But if you look at the 3 other wins and the QBs that they were playing there, it wasn't a very impressive lot of QBs. And then they did play Cincy recently and or this year, and Cincy clobbered them, and that was in Vegas. So you know what, the 5.5 is a big number and everything else, but I like how Cincy, they just have so much firepower. I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to keep up. Give me Cincinnati, lay the 5.5 points. The other game, New England at Buffalo, and the Bills are favored by 4.5. A rookie quarterback for the Patriots. I know these two teams split, but if you remember that Monday night game, wind was the total factor there. Now, the weather could be a factor in this one. It's going to be bitterly cold, but snow could be the great equalizer here. If they're talking about, snow during the whole game, I'm inclined then to take the points and New England. But if it's just cold, give me the Bills, and I'll lay the 4.5 there. Onward, Philly at Tampa, the Bucs -8.5. You know what? I remember last year in the playoffs, the Washington football team, at least that's where they're at right now until the end of this month, they kept it close against the Bucs with Taylor Heineke. Not a lot of weapons with no Antonio Brown and Godwin. Now you're forcing Gronk, he has to be that guy. Of course, along with Mike Evans, but Tom, just Fournette coming back. Maybe he'll be 100%, maybe not. I think this all adds up to not a Philadelphia win, but Philadelphia plus 8.5. Give me the Eagles. I'll take the Eagles plus the 8.5. San Francisco at Dallas. The way Deebo Samuel is going, I had some fireworks. I like initially. I don't have the over and under in front of me. I like the over in this game here, but Dallas is a Jekyll and Hyde team. They're really hard to predict. Jimmy G's got the busted up thumb, but you know what? Deebo Samuel. I think the 49ers in this one, because I'm getting 3. I'm getting 3 points. I like San Francisco. Give me the 49ers in this game. In fact, give me them outright. Pitt is at KC. Chiefs favored by 12.5. That is a gigantic number, but I think people are just getting sentimental. I get sentimental. Big Ben, his last game, and he took the trip around the field 2 weeks ago. Great scene there at Heinz Field and everything else. 3 weeks ago, the Chiefs smoked them by 26 points. 12.5. I don't like giving up double-digit points in a playoff game, but you know what? It's different this year. I mean, like anything in the past where you're like, well, you don't give up double digits. Well, they've never had a 7th seed in before. Pittsburgh doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs. They're going to get beat by 20. Give me the Chiefs. I'll lay the big number there. And that gets us to Monday Night Football. And it is Arizona at LA. The LA Rams, where the Super Bowl is going to be played this year. Rams -4. A month ago, these two teams played on Monday Night Football, and the Rams went to Arizona. They had lost earlier in the year, but Aaron Donald dominated that game. And, you can talk about planning and how to what you're going to do for Aaron Donald here. But you know what? If the Cards had DeAndre Hopkins, it would be one thing. But, they don't. They get down to the red zone. They don't have any answers. They will load up on James Conner. And I think the Rams will not be denied here. I'll take the Rams. I'll lay the 4. Although, I'm going to root against not necessarily Matt Stafford, but the Rams overall, because it would help the Lions and get them a higher pick. And if you're from Detroit and you're a Lions fan, I think that's the way that you go. Now, you may say drafting doesn't matter. I don't care if we're drafting 25 or 30. I like Matt Stafford. I'm going to root for him. That's fine. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's your prerogative. I'm just telling you how I'm doing it. And, now that I have given you the pick, and if it gets down to Monday and I take my phone out and I put I'll probably be right there with you rooting for the Rams, even though I know that it would be best for the Lions if the Rams went out there and lost this game. It's one of those things, we saw him for 12 years here in Detroit, talking about Stafford being like, hey, that guy can win you some ball games by himself. He can also go out there and lose them. And we have seen that play out almost to a T with the Rams. But I think Stafford's got one in him. I think he's got at least a game, maybe 2 in the postseason before, the Stafford where he's throwing it left and right to the other team. I know this, if the Rams end up going to Lambeau, which is what I think is going to end up playing out, I've seen enough of Stafford going to Lambeau where he gets so keyed up and jacked up where he's throwing the ball 10 yards over somebody's head in the first half and they get buried. I'll give him a game. I'll even give him 2. I'm not going to give him 3. But I like the Rams when it comes down to that. And speaking of gambling, I'm talking about getting on my phone and doing all this. Michigan State went out there and secured a sponsorship with a gambling site. So now State and this gambling site, they're brought to you, signage all over the place. And, I was just looking online. People were saying, well, Michigan needs to jump into bed with a gambling site. That's free money. Give the money to the recruits, put more money in your pocket. And you know what? Michigan's strategy, and I know they're on the big scoreboard that they have. I think it says Sony but there's no other sponsorship, I guess in your cups and in your program, and you can say here on the uniform. Okay. I was talking about like signage in the stadium. Michigan's a lot like Augusta National, where they play the Masters. Less is more, and it's worth more advertising wise. And, it's not like I'm looking down my nose at gambling, but it is, it's interesting when it comes to vices. Like you don't put like alcohol, like some banner for like, alcohol down there. I don't sell alcohol at the games. I mean, it's college. What are we talking about here? But, gambling, okay. Gambling is the accepted vice here, but, no tobacco, no alcohol, but gambling's good. Maybe in a year or 2, maybe this year, Michigan will be like, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead. We'll jump in and we'll get in there with the gambling side. It just doesn't, people don't like this, but it does have to be a fit. And a gambling site, I don't. Michigan State, hey, they're taking the money, free money up there. But I think I don't expect Michigan at any time to be jumping in with any casino or online betting site. It just doesn't fit in now. It could be an argument. Like they should. Everybody else is doing it. Same thing with the NLI. I mean, I get that argument, and look, if a gambling site called me and they wanted to put signage up here right now and say, hey, I would say okay, but this isn't Michigan. I'm talking about Michigan, but this is not Michigan. I don't think Michigan is. So whether you like that or don't like it, I think you understand where I'm coming from. Also, where I'm coming from is I'll be back here 2 times today. Once, I will preview Michigan hockey's big weekend against Penn State, tell you everything you need to know about what the Wolverines look like on the ice, talk with their play-by-play man for the Wolverines, Al Randall. That's coming up this afternoon when Al gets down to the rink. And then later on tonight, mention a 9 o'clock tip. Those games go usually from 2 hours to 2 hours, 15 minutes. So after 11 o'clock, around 11:15, I would guess, I'll be back and I'll talk about what happens with the Michigan basketball team tonight in Champaign and get you that update. And you know what? If you can't make it tonight, you look on the YouTube, it's there. You go to the Den, Wolverine Den, and the Maize and Blue Review. It's posted there. And also our podcast. It's there as well. So, see the game and you're watching this and you wake up tomorrow morning, you're like, well, I wonder everything that went on and what happened in Champaign to Michigan. Jump in there on the podcast, Maize and Blue Review, and get it sent to your phone and boom. I'll be there talking about it tonight. So until later on today, everybody have a great Friday. Stay warm. We'll talk to you then. Good night. Good day.